Hollywood has been printing the legend of the Wild West for over a century, and frankly, the legend is often more exciting than the truth. But the real history is far more fascinating. Today, we're peeling back the layers of Hollywood myth to reveal 12 of the most shockingly inaccurate things you'll find in your favorite westerns, and we'll be using the beloved classic Tombstone as our guide. If you love the real stories of the Old West as much as we do, now would be a great time to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss our next trip back in time. Number 12. The Accurate Western. Let's start with a film many believe is one of the most accurate westerns ever made, 1988's Young Guns. It used real names and followed the basic story of the Lincoln County War. Because of that, it got a reputation for being true to life. But the truth is, its reputation for accuracy just shows how low the bar was for westerns. For starters, the film portrays Billy the Kid's mentor, John Tunstall, as a wise, older father figure. The real John Tunstall was only 24 years old when he was killed, making him a friend to the young men he hired, not a father. And many of the characters the movie kills off for dramatic effect, like Doc Scurlock and Jose Chavez, actually survived the war and lived long lives. Young Guns may feel more real than other westerns, but it still bends the facts to tell a better story. Number 11. The Outlaw Folk Hero. The movies love a good-hearted outlaw, a modern-day Robin Hood, and no one fits that role better than Jesse James. He's been portrayed time and again as a simple farm boy, driven to a life of crime by corrupt railroad barons and bankers, stealing from the rich to give to the poor. This is one of the biggest lies of the Western myth. The real Jesse James wasn't a hero. He was a cold-blooded killer. His life of crime started as a teenage Confederate guerrilla during the Civil War. He took part in brutal massacres, targeting unarmed Union soldiers. His post-war career wasn't about social justice. It was a continuation of that war. The James Younger gang targeted banks and trains associated with Northern sympathizers. And as for giving to the poor, there is absolutely zero historical evidence he ever shared a dime of his stolen loot with anyone. The Robin Hood story was a myth created by a sympathetic newspaper editor to paint a terrorist as a defiant hero. Number 10. The Women of the West. In the cinematic West, women usually play one of two parts: the pure and proper schoolmarm, or the fallen saloon girl with a heart of gold. They are prizes to be won or symbols of temptation. This simple picture couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is, the untamed nature of the frontier offered women incredible opportunities and freedoms they couldn't find back east. The Homestead Act of 1862 allowed single women to claim 160 acres of land in their own name, and thousands did, becoming independent farmers. They ran ranches, owned businesses, and worked as doctors and nurses. And they were pioneers in politics too. Wyoming granted women the right to vote in 1869, a full 50 years before the rest of the country. The West was also home to trailblazers like the sharpshooter Annie Oakley and Mary Fields, a 6-foot-tall African-American woman who became a mail carrier, driving a stagecoach through dangerous territory. The real women of the West weren't just waiting for a hero to save them. They were building the West themselves. Number 9. The Celluloid Indian. If the Western erased many of the West's real women, it did something even worse to Native Americans. For decades, Hollywood portrayed them not as people, but as one-dimensional caricatures. The films created a generic Plains Indian, a warrior in a feathered headdress living in a teepee, and applied that stereotype to every single tribe. Apaches from the deserts of the Southwest were often shown with the clothing and customs of the Lakota from the northern plains. This wasn't just lazy, it was a complete disregard for the hundreds of distinct nations, each with their own unique language, culture, and history. In most classic westerns, Native Americans were used as a faceless threat, like a storm or a rock slide, for the white heroes to overcome. This portrayal was heavily influenced by Buffalo Bill's Wild West shows, which were theatrical performances that staged mock battles for audiences, creating a lasting and inaccurate image of Native Americans as bloodthirsty aggressors. Number 8. The overlooked cowboy. When you picture the Old West, you probably see the classic cowboy, a rugged figure riding the plains. For decades, that's the picture Hollywood gave us. But in telling that story, the movie makers often overlooked a huge piece of the real history, and it's a fascinating one. What the movies rarely showed was that the real frontier was far different from the one on screen. Historians estimate that during the great cattle drives after the Civil War, as many as 1 in 4 cowboys was black. These weren't minor figures. They were an essential part of the cattle industry. Many were formerly enslaved men from Texas who brought years of experience handling cattle with them. They worked in every role you can imagine on a cattle drive, serving as ropers, horse wranglers, and even as respected trail cooks. These thousands of men made a massive contribution to one of America's most iconic eras. Yet their story was one that Hollywood simply didn't tell for a very long time. Number 7. The cowboy uniform. Just as iconic as the cowboy himself is his look, the wide-brimmed hat, the rugged clothes, and that low-slung gun belt. But this uniform is largely a costume designed by Hollywood. For much of the late 19th century, the single most common hat in the West wasn't the cowboy hat we know, but the bowler hat. The high-crowned Stetson did become popular, but its classic shape evolved over time as cowboys creased the crowns and rolled the brims themselves. And the gun belt is perhaps the biggest myth of all. The low-slung, tied-down holster made for a fast draw is a pure Hollywood invention. Real 19th century holsters were designed for comfort and to keep the gun from falling out, especially on horseback. They were worn higher on the waist because their purpose was to carry a tool, not to get into a quick-draw duel. Number 6. The swinging saloon doors. In the movies, the saloon is where the action is. It's a place of constant brawls, where poker games end in gunfire, and every chair is destined to be broken over someone's back. While violence did happen, the idea of it being a weekly furniture-smashing event is a huge exaggeration. Saloons were businesses, and a business owner whose property was constantly being destroyed wouldn't be in business for long. The real saloon was the social and economic heart of a frontier town. It was a community hub for everyone from miners and cowboys to businessmen and lawmen. It was a place to find news, make deals, and escape the harsh realities of frontier life. Competition was fierce, so saloons offered all kinds of entertainment beyond just whiskey, including billiards, bowling, and live music. Many even offered a free lunch to get customers to stay and buy more drinks. Number 5. The magic six-shooter. Gunfights are the centerpiece of any great Western, but the guns themselves are often given magical properties. The most common offender is the infinite six-shooter. In the heat of battle, a hero's revolver never seems to run dry. The movie Tombstone is a perfect example. During the OK Corral sequence, Wyatt Earp clearly fires 9 shots from his 6-shot Colt revolver without reloading. Many films are also filled with the wrong guns for the era. Older movies were famous for using the Winchester 1892 rifle in stories set decades before it was even invented. Even modern films get it wrong. Quentin Tarantino's Django Unchained, set in 1858, shows characters using dynamite, which wasn't invented until 1867. And the idea that every gunslinger could hit a silver dollar at 50 paces is a fantasy. Early black powder pistols were notoriously inaccurate at any real distance. Number 4. The high noon quick draw. There is no image more central to the Western than 2 men facing each other on a dusty street, hands hovering over their guns. It is the ultimate test of will and skill. It is also almost entirely a myth. The classic high noon shootout is one of Hollywood's most enduring inventions. This iconic scene was created by 19th century dime novelists and later perfected by filmmakers. In reality, formal dueling with pistols was outlawed in most of the country early on. Real gunfights were chaotic, spontaneous, and brutal ambushes or drunken brawls. If someone wanted to kill another person, they were far more likely to use a shotgun from behind than to give them a fair fight. As Wyatt Earp himself once said, The winner of a gunfight was usually the one who took his time, and that he would shun flashy trick shooting as he would poison. Number 3, the real Doc Holliday. Val Kilmer's performance as Doc Holliday in Tombstone is legendary. He's a philosophizing, Latin-quoting gunslinger staring death in the face. He is also a romanticized fiction. The real John Henry Holliday was a doctor of dental surgery. He was a dentist who was forced to move west for his health when his tuberculosis worsened. His reputation as a deadly killer is also largely a myth. The only man he is definitively known to have killed is Tom McClory at the OK Corral. And while the film shows his illness, it dramatically downplays how devastating it truly was. By the time he was in Tombstone, he would have been severely underweight, constantly tired, and in pain. The idea that a man so sick could have the stamina for prolonged gunfights is a major stretch. The unforgettable character on screen is a perfect flawed anti-hero, but he's a far cry from the tragic, dying dentist of history. Number 2, the hero in the black coat. The Wyatt Earp of the movies, especially in Tombstone, is the perfect Western hero. He's a man of few words and unshakable nerve who reluctantly brings justice to a lawless town. This portrayal is powerful, memorable, and almost entirely a fabrication. First, Wyatt Earp wasn't the main lawman in Tombstone. His older brother, Virgil, was. Virgil was the city marshal and a deputy U.S. marshal. He was the one who decided to disarm the cowboys. Wyatt was only acting as a temporary special policeman, deputized by his brother for the occasion. The film puts Wyatt in charge because he's the star. Even more shocking is Wyatt's checkered past. Before coming to Tombstone, he was arrested for stealing a horse and had to escape from jail to avoid trial. He was also fired from a police force in Kansas after getting into a public fistfight. The conflict with the cowboys wasn't just about law and order either. It was a bitter feud over money and political control of the booming silver town. The historical Wyatt Earp was a complex and morally gray man, not the flawless champion of justice we see on screen. Number 1, the gunfight at the OK Corral. This brings us to the most famous gunfight in American history. Tombstone's version is a masterclass in tension and action. It is also wrong in almost every single detail. First, the gunfight at the OK Corral did not happen at the OK Corral. It took place in a narrow, vacant lot on Fremont Street behind the corral. The name was just more glamorous. The film also stretches a frantic 30-second brawl into a long tactical battle. In reality, about 30 shots were fired in 30 seconds at extremely close range. It was chaotic and terrifying, not a deliberate contest of skill. The film also changes what the participants did. The unarmed Ike Clanton fled in terror at the start of the real fight. The movie has him grab a gun and keep shooting. Billy Clanton, after being shot, propped himself up and kept firing with his left hand until he was out of bullets. The real fight was desperate and ugly. By making it longer, more organized, and more heroic, Tombstone turns a messy street fight into a legend. It transforms Wyatt Earp, the only one to walk away without a scratch, from a lucky survivor into a master gunfighter. The myths of the Old West are powerful, and they make for great movies, but they often hide a history that is far more complex and interesting. Hollywood gave us simple stories of good versus evil because they are satisfying. But the real West was a place of gray areas, built by a diverse group of flawed, fascinating people. So, what's a Western movie myth that always bothered you? Or which one of these 12 facts surprised you the most? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the real Old West.